Welcome to Achy Breaky Park, the podcast about theme parks hosted by two guys who live nowhere near their favorite theme parks. I'm Eric.
And I'm Noah. So today we're going to be talking about the Dream Called EPCOT, a film that was shown the year before EPCOT opened and sort of gave people an overview of what the park was going to be and what was going to be there initially and sort of the ideas behind the park.
Yeah, it's a 15-minute film. I know we talked about this a little bit in the past. We were confused where this film kind of came from because it was posted to the Disney Parks YouTube channel a couple of years back, and we weren't really sure where it originated. I did a bit of digging. It started in the EPCOT Center Preview Center. So that was at Magic Kingdom in 1981 and was, like you said, kind of just an overview of what was to come at EPCOT when it opened in 1982.
This special, it really gets my heart because this is a time that like we both really long for. Like we wish like we weren't alive during this time of EPCOT, but it's sort of like what we want EPCOT to be, but we know that it can't be anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the film kind of shows a version of EPCOT that wouldn't even be for a few years, because this has Horizons open and Living Seas, like pavilions and attractions that wouldn't open for a few years after EPCOT itself opened. This is showing us what, I guess, quote unquote, peak EPCOT would have looked like, which I know is kind of a topic of hot debate in like the Disney and like theme park community at large, as Noah kind of mentioned.
Most people will acknowledge that this generation or this time of EPCOT is far superior to what we have now, or currently as of this recording. But as we move into this new time of EPCOT, I think it's going to be good, but it's just not going to be the same. And we can never get the same thing for many reasons we'll get into, but they're two different things now. What EPCOT is now is very different than what it started off as.
It's kind of hard to talk about this era of EPCOT, especially with us not being around for that time. You see a lot of like kind of negativity in the fan community about people who kind of idolize or like put old EPCOT on a pedestal, having never actually been there or seen it, which I guess we're a little bit guilty of. But I think the important distinction to make for us is that we're still open to whatever changes are coming. And I think that offers a whole lot of new excitement in of itself.
Yeah, like as much as I want to ride Horizons and Original Figment, I do know that that is not what is best for the Walt Disney Company to prosper and to like that the normal guest would want. Because I feel like a normal guest, like Spaceship Earth doesn't have the longest lines right now. Nowadays, I feel like Disney has trained guests to just be like, I am coming here to see Disney characters. It's no longer I'm coming here to like experience a new story.
Well, it's so much of an easier sell this way with the IP. It's like a shortcut kind of to communicate. And I don't want to say shortcut in a way that implies it's lazy, but like it is easier to get people on board when they already are familiar with like a setting or a character or something like that. To say like, hey, we're going to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. We're going to see the Star Wars characters and stuff that we know. That's so much easier than like having to introduce them to new characters in new places while they're already in the park. So I see the reasoning for it.
And that's why I do think that we know nothing about it, but like that Moana water walkthrough attraction could be very cool because it seems very light on the IP and very heavy on like just ambience.
Yeah, and I want to say that like they're doing a good job. We haven't seen anything obviously of like Guardians of the Galaxy thing.
That looks good. I'm excited for that. That coaster does some crazy things. Is that the one with the backwards launch?
Yeah.
And then the vehicle itself actually like spins on the track, like but controlled sort of like an Omnimover vehicle.
Yeah, because they're gonna have like show scenes and stuff in there, which like cool. I'm down for this always.
But the thing that always gets me about like this IP versus like non-IP attraction is if you think about like the most iconic and popular Disney attractions, they're not IP based. Or they weren't when they came out. Like Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, all of these attractions weren't based on any IP when they came out. But It's just that like though I feel like those are the attractions that people remember the most and are the most beloved. And I feel like people will line up for Frozen Ever After more because they want their kid to go on the Frozen ride. The Frozen ride isn't going to be the ride they remember the most, but they're going to go on it because they know these characters. Whereas they might not initially know to go on Haunted Mansion, but when they get off that ride, they're going to be like, that was amazing.
I mean, that's what we love so much, are like these experiences and like characters and stuff that we can only like see or meet in the parks. This film really kind of captures like an era of Epcot that doesn't exist anymore, and like for some reasons like shouldn't exist anymore. There was another podcast that I listened to. I'm not going to name it here, but the host outlined their plans for how they would change Epcot if they had the opportunity, and they kept talking about how they wanted to do a mix of like the old and the new, and like not go completely hardcore on like old Epcot. But then when they actually talked about their plans, like it was literally just, let's build another Horizons, let's build Journey into Imagination exactly as it was before. And it's like you said, like I don't think that's the way to go forward. I don't think that's helping anyone, because there's obviously a reason why those rides closed in the first place.
Well, like I know Journey closed because they lost their sponsor because Kodak stopped sponsoring it, I think.
And it was the same with Horizons as well. GM dropped out.
G,
sorry.
And that's the problem with original Epcot in and of itself, is that it was very heavy based on corporate sponsorship. And we'll get into this a little later, probably, of like the efficacy of what the corporate sponsorship brought. But if you look at the very last frame of the Dream Called EPCOT, it lists off like the original sponsors. And it was American Express, Bell Systems, Coca-Cola, Exxon, General Electric, General Motors, Kodak, Kraft, Surrey, Univac, and Time Inc. I don't want to say these companies are evil, but like what they're sponsoring brings an obvious bias towards the experience that it is presenting. But I don't want to say that it's also a product of that time.
Of course, yeah. It's a complicated relationship, but you're right that's totally a reason why this wouldn't happen today, because we don't really see ride sponsorships anymore either. So,
and when you do, it's very like light. It's literally just a sign outside. One of the segments that they talk about is a ride that like nobody talks about a lot, but I feel is so out of grip. World of Motion, which is what Test Track replaced. They seem so different in like just execution of like what they are. I guess another very different one would be Horizons and Spaceship and Mission Space, but those are totally different themes. I feel like when it comes to this one, it just seems so wild, and it's one that happened very early on. Like Test Track, I think that might have been the first like major change of an attraction.
You're probably right. I know there was like a weird thing where like Horizons and World of Motion like closed very close to each other, and because World of Motion closed, they had to reopen Horizons.
I think it was once Test Track opened, Horizons closed.
Yeah, that sounds right. But yeah, this was like late 90s, so this was like around the time that I would have started going to the park. So that with being said, do you want to kind of get into the meat of the special a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. This entire intro is amazing when you see just sort of like all this like futuristic imagery with like the dolphins, like people riding dolphins in the underwater environment.
It's all animated in a way that it's kind of evocative of like cheap 80s like TV animation. And once again, just so lo-fi that I love it.
It's animated versions of like what you would of like the Horizons art that you would see.
Yeah, no, I was trying to put my finger on it because this special kind of flirts a lot with what you talked about before, like the original Epcot film, the Walt talking about his plans for like the future city that never actually happened. And this kind of like does a good job of harkening back to that and kind of trying to tie the concept of Epcot that became reality to the Epcot that never was.
But I love that cut that goes from the crazy futuristic concept art to like a Walt Disney World monorail.
Oh yeah, I have that in my notes right here. It's so good.
It makes the monorail look so futuristic and like just this like crazy thing that's like that still doesn't exist, but like a monorail is just like a very basic form of transportation. But the way it's cut here makes it look like it's like the craziest thing. Like What?
I've definitely had that thought before, though. Like while I'm just on the monorail in the resorts, like especially when we were doing our CP and we could like ride the monorail like almost every day, and it was kind of nothing for us. Just how crazy it is that something like that exists to just ride.
Yeah, like it's like not a futuristic thing at all. Like the Disney, like it works very like my stupid brain can figure out how a monorail works.
But it still feels it. I don't know. When I'm on that train, like I feel like I'm living in the future.
But I just love like all of the language they use. Like just the way that they make it like sound through the writing. I want to just play a little bit of the writing just so you can hear what I'm talking about.
Advanced new electric-powered monorail trains and linear induction-powered people movers.
Linear induction-powered people movers. It's word vomit, but it sounds beautiful.
Tomorrow technologies include a central energy plant solar project, the world's first use of steel modular construction.
Steel modular construction.
A unique network of underground crisscrossing utilidors, computer-controlled fires.
Crisscrossing utilidors.
The world's first 100% electronic phone system.
Electronic phone system.
Pesky water hyacinths for treating of wastewater and creating methane gas for energy.
Methane gas for energy. It's all of these, and even that like sound that they have in between. Oh, beautiful. I love it so much. It's very much like now it sounds like retro futurism, but it's like actually futurism back then.
And like it's again, like I keep coming back to this point, the fact that this was shown to guests in a theme park, like anticipating the opening of EPCOT. Like I don't know who was in Magic Kingdom in 1981 and cared about how Disney like dealt with its waste and like how cast members got around the park.
But I think it's like a very different time back then when like technology wasn't like, they were obviously like fairly advanced in the 80s, but it's just like now I feel like technology is so like we just take it so for granted where we just expect everything to do what we want it to do. But back then it was sort of like, if you watch the opening day special, they're like, you can come here and use a touch screen. This is something we hope everybody will have when they're home one day. But before that, they can experience it here at EPCOT. So I feel like now that technology is advancing so fast that we just like take it for granted. Back then, something like solar panels were like, whoa, what?
Yeah, it was a breakthrough. And that's another reason why EPCOT like this can't happen today. But like watching this video, like I know I'm not the first person to like put forward this idea, but do you think that in a way, like just Disney World, like as a resort, is kind of a realization of EPCOT in a way, in the like weird self-containedness of it all? And
I do think it is. This is something I actually do think that like it fairly became what Walt Disney intended. Like it cut out the stuff that wouldn't work and it kept the stuff that would. But like more for like corporate like manipulative reasons, like Reedy Creek development mainly being so Disney can govern themselves. So if you don't know, Disney mainly set up this district called the Reedy Creek Improvement District, which the Walt Disney Company operates so they can self-govern themselves and they can zone the area.
It's their own government. Yeah, like they have their own fire department. They have their own like utilities and everything. They show like some of the electronic like power plants and stuff in here.
Yeah, like that's what I always think is crazy about Disney World, is because it was just an empty spot of land. And it's not like they had a city or like a government to build highways for them. Disney had to figure out how to build their own highway system in order to like get people from like point A to point B. And they mainly had to figure out how to get like electricity to all these different like parts. Like they had to set up like a power grid, I think.
It's so weird. And of course, like you kind of alluded to this, there's a whole bunch of like grossness that we could get into, and definitely with the original EPCOT plan, like things that just would never work.
Well, we're going to do an episode on the original EPCOT film eventually, and there's a lot there that sounds cool but would never work. What they're talking about here isn't very foreign to like Disney World guests, because it's not like they're talking about like this insane thing. Like the attractions they talk about, they sound like stuff that could have been in the Magic Kingdom at that time, because Tomorrowland, I think at this point, was still mainly stuff like this. people sort of expect this because like something like the American Adventure, which they mentioned in the special, could be very correlated to the Hall of Presidents. So it's like the stuff isn't very foreign to people here.
I've always thought of Magic Kingdom in a way as like enveloping some elements of the other parks, like obviously Adventureland being Animal Kingdom, and like they're not the same. Like Magic Kingdom is a lot more like fantasy and all that, but there's like the crossover, like you said.
They are, all the parks do, I think, excluding Animal Kingdom, all the parks do feel like they're becoming like this unification type thing where when they're all IP, none of them are really different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's definitely a discussion, like a whole other subject that we can get into.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But no, but so this is an era, like when Epcot first opened, this was an era where it was going to be like, yeah, you Mickey might be like somewhere, but like you're not going to come here and meet Disney characters. Like this is a place where you could go to Disney World on a field trip. Like you could go there and you could educate yourself, but it's still
the Simpsons episode where they go to Epcot. I'm sure we'll cover it at
exactly
some point, but it's like just education, nothing, no fun allowed.
Yeah, but it's still entertaining. And that's why I think there's still this differentiator where when people think Walt Disney World, like when they go to Epcot, they're like, oh, where's Walt Disney World? Like where they're two separate things.
Oh, people calling Magic Kingdom Disney World?
Yeah. And I feel like that's because when Epcot, maybe because like with older people, when Epcot first opened, it was this different thing where like it wasn't very Disney, but it had like, it was still quality, but it was just a very different experience.
It wasn't Disney characters.
Exactly.
In this video in particular, like they're really doing the hard sell on like making these entertaining or these educational things sound fun and exciting. Kind of go from like pavilion to pavilion. And
when they do like the pan through, so it's amazing how similar they look to what actually got built. Like
that was incredible for the whole thing. Like I thought I would be going through and nitpicking like, oh, that's not like this isn't like this. And I guess because it's so close, this is 1981, Epcot opened in 82, they are really identical, and this is fully like what we've seen.
Just also like the Herb Ryman art of like the Epcot was like the orange like sunset background of like Spaceship Earth. I'm just gonna play a little more of like this narration because I just love like this man's voice, the language he uses. It's miraculous.
Focusing on the cultures, traditions, tourism, and accomplishments of people around the world. Your journey to tomorrow begins with Spaceship Earth. Towering nearly 17 stories above future world, this mammoth geosphere is the first
geodesic sphere
anywhere in the world. Inside, you'll board a unique time machine and spiral deep into the past in search of clues to our survival through the ages and how they'll help us chart the course of our own future on this, our Spaceship Earth.
I have always loved that narration where it's just like just the term Spaceship Earth just sounds so cool.
Oh, I absolutely love it. It really makes you feel like you're like accomplishing something by riding.
I have the mural on a sticker on my laptop, like the mural that's outside Spaceship Earth. That's what like I want in these new projects. It's just like more like artistry, not just like the stock photos that you might see of like Anna and Elsa that pop up on like attraction signs. And I don't want to shit on Imagineering because it's budget constraints. It's not the actual artistry of the people working on these attractions.
Can we talk about the Imagineering offices that they show in this special?
Oh, it's so cool. But like I just want to say that like I just wish like even when you go to Disneyland and you see those like murals of all the fantasy dark ride attractions, or just like the murals at Epcot, it's just like bring those back. Just bring back someone at a wall actually painting a mural. Like I know it costs money, but it lasts and it's beautiful.
It's so cool. I always think about the one in Disneyland, the Tomorrowland one that shows like the space mountains like flying in the.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, but like so you were saying like these Imagineering offices, like they are.
Oh my god, they're so like entrenched in the 70s, but I love them so much.
It's very like mid-century.
Yeah, I have a note here about how boring their offices and their jobs look. That was my initial impression. That I guess we kind of just like want to imagine that it's like Santa's workshop in there. But then when I look back at it, like it's so comfy and just so cozy.
Do you notice one of the Imagineers, they're drawing the schematics for the Canada Pavilion? Yeah, that's like they like kind of like focus on that one.
I didn't see like, that. No.
There's just one shot also in this that I wrote a note on just because it's so cool, where they're like panning down to the Epcot model, and they pan up, and you could just see like just fluorescent lights on the ceiling, and they're like in a row, but it just looks so cool. Like, hang on, I'll show you real quick. But like that shot of just like the model with fluorescent lights over it, just make it look so much cooler.
Oh yeah, it's just the model like sitting in what could be any office building.
It literally looks like a basement.
Yeah, it's taking something that should be mundane, and somehow when you attach the name Epcot to it, it just feels like the future. And I feel like we've had this discussion before where like Spaceship Earth is a genuinely beautiful thing. Like that structure, like I would say it rivals like any castle around the world. Like even Cinderella Castle, like it's such a simple design, but it's so cool. Like absolutely.
It's just so impressive, like the way it's built. Like you don't think like that ride, like I want to find like detailed plans for how they fit Spaceship Earth, like the ride into there, because it's crazy how there's a ride in there. Like how are they going to do this renovation? Like how do they get new stuff into there? How do they get stuff out?
There's a preview video from 1982 that it's just like 3 minutes long, and it's kind of a compliment to this, but they have like this really sweet behind the scenes footage of Spaceship Earth construction shots, and I can never get tired of looking at it. Like
there's some construction shots in this, and it's just crazy because like you see like the metal structure before they put panels on it, and then like and you see the ride going like when you're on the ride, there is an fairly obvious like where you are in the sphere. You kind of know if you're like paying attention, because like
yeah, like definitely at the end, like you can tell you're at the top of the dome.
But like if you're not like us who like had the privilege of being able to go on it like 100 times, then you wouldn't like. When I go on, I would just want like if I'm ever going to go back to Disney for a vacation, I'm not going to like think about like how it's working. I'm just going to enjoy the ride like most people would.
I remember when I first went to Epcot and I was like 4. I didn't ride Spaceship Earth, but I know my dad did. And like the whole time I was just like baffled by him talking about how there's a ride in there, because I couldn't comprehend that. Like my 4-year-old brain did not believe that they could fit something like that.
Also, the fact that this ride still exists makes me so happy, is that a ride about the history of communications exists at the #1 tourist destination in the world.
We keep coming back to this, which is so boring, but so cool because it's boring.
But that's why I want to ride, like, because this is like definitely like top 5 favorite rides. But that's why I want to go on like Horizons so much, because that's like the sequel to this ride. It's not like because I want like, it's not because I want to bring back like that generation. It's because I want to like, I love this ride so much. I want to see what the sequel's like. And just, I think what gets me about Horizons is like, I know Horizons was better than Mission Space, because anything is better than Mission Space.
Mission Space sucks. Like
it has a cool queue, and I remember like when we went, I was always scared to go on Orange because it just has this reputation of like you're gonna throw up when you get off of it.
The little cards that they hand out.
Yeah, and you were like, no, it's not that bad. And then I'm like, okay, I'll go on. And then I went on, and it was fine. It just feels like someone's like pushing down on your chest.
Like it's the epitome of like okay rides. Like it's just nothing to write home about.
The graphics are terrible. Like I literally, when we went on green right after just to see what it was like, and I literally fell asleep. Like I was literally sitting there asleep in the ride. I just love how like much they don't want you to go on that ride though. How they're just like, there's like 10 times where they're just like, if you don't want to go on, say it now. If you don't want to go on, say it now. Like this ride is very intense. Are you sure you want to go on?
It really like, there's no reason for it to exist. Like take the hint.
Yeah, and a ride about space could be so cool. Think about like like a Spaceship Earth style ride about space, like with animatronics. And don't make it like actually like scientific, but sort of just like this, like retrofuturism again type thing where it's still educational, but like throw some aliens in there and stuff.
I think a lot about the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral. I went to once a long ass time ago, and they do such a better job of like simulating the astronaut experience that this just doesn't compare.
Yeah. And maybe Cosmic Rewind will have like some space elements in it, and that will prompt them to replace Mission Space with something else. In a while, obviously. That might have been the original plan, but maybe in a while we'll get something like that.
That whole side of Future World is just hurting right now, and this like video really drives it home so much.
Yeah, well, at least the Seas is on that side, right?
No, other side.
I always get confused what side things are on, but like,
it's been too long. That's what this whole podcast is about.
Exactly. I most parks I can have like, I have like the map inside my head. Like Magic Kingdom, I can like, if I close my eyes and like you drop me off at the train station, and then you say like get to like Enchanted Tales with Belle, I could give you like directions on how to get there.
But yeah, after it shows off like all the different attractions, it goes into like this ending song, which is so weirdly specific about.
I have told you about this ending song before, and you forgot it when we were like, "Oh, this was a while ago." Where I gush about this ending song so much. I love it. So I'm gonna play the song in its entirety. I don't care. I don't think Disney's gonna come after us for copyright flag for this. But say what you want to say with this ending song because I love it. So it goes right from the Golden Dream from the American Venture into this song. So the last shot you see before is spaceship going up, overview of the park again, and then I'll just play it. But the first thing you see when the song starts is someone on a mixer, like pushing up the sliders.
Oh my God, yes.
And any song that starts off like that, is gonna be good. Hang on, I'm just gonna play it.
Dreaming is what the American adventure is all about. Then so is doing. That's what's happening today.
That's what's happening
Walt
today.
Disney built a staff of doers. And today, his greatest dream, EPCOT Center, is indeed becoming reality. And no matter where you go in Future World or World Showcase, it'll be an experience.
And it's like close-ups of like the models of like what the ride's gonna be.
Except perhaps in your wildest dreams.
It started in the mind of just one man.
And you're seeing like the offices and people working.
Epcot music just slaps.
We'll get into Epcot music also.
That's going to be its own episode or several.
The
episodes.
Epcot album.
We're getting ready. 15 years ago we started small. What with people working hard and giving their all.
You see like people like designing costumes.
There's like rehearsal footage, like
with like that banner. I want to get an Epcot Center opening banner. I don't know where I would buy that, but I want to get it. Them putting like the models down of like where they planned it out to be. There's a clip of like what the original like Africa Pavilion was gonna be.
Oh, the equatorial Africa.
Yeah, there was like a little shot of the pavilion of what it was gonna look like compared to like the nothingness that is there now, which is like a whole other thing. And the Herb Ryman art, like zooming out, and even just this ending.
Are you talking about the 21st Century Begins October 1st, 1982? Oh my God. That is my favorite piece of copywriting ever. Like, hands down.
Just this language that surrounded Epcot is just, I know we're sounding like what we said we weren't at the very beginning.
Well, this is just such a great, like, succinct way to summarize what Epcot is.
All the music, anytime there's music in here, like, I wish all this music would come back. Because, like, Listen to the Land, a bop of a song. Universe of Energy song, a bop. I never saw it like in real life, but even just like the Epcot Forever Like, just the fact they included all that music in there, it's so good. It's like,
It is. I'm so sad that I never got to experience that and probably won't get to experience it.
okay, so I think we both like think that Disney should build more original attractions, not based on rides. I know you think that, but I do think that that's not what they're going to do, and I can acknowledge that and still think what they're doing is good.
Yeah, I think just be open a little bit.
Yeah.
Be ready to...
Like, all these people, like, shitting on, like, Ratatouille before it opens, like, it's already been open. You know what the ride's gonna be. Why are you saying it's gonna be shit when, like, you already know what the ride's gonna be?
In Paris, you can see, like, ride-throughs.
Yeah, you can see exactly what's gonna be. And then just everyone, like, shitting, like, that's what's wrong with this, like, whole community, that everyone shits on things before they open. Like, I have an opinion before it opens, which doesn't matter. I have an opinion based on a ride-through video, which still doesn't matter. Until I actually go on a ride for myself, I can't say shit.
Or even let it sit with you. Like, sometimes you need to ride it a few times. Like,
yeah, like,
I feel like even, like, Navi River Journey, it's still not my favorite, but it's grown on me a little bit, at least.
Navi River Journey is, like, if I went there on vacation and it had a long wait, I wouldn't do it. But, like, if I could just go on it, if I got, like, a fast pass somehow, yeah, maybe. But it's just, like, it's like the same things, like, if you were to see a video of Flight of Passage, you would be like, what the heck was that? But, like, when you ride it, it's different. You know what I mean?
You're right. Yeah, no. And especially with, like, the stuff that's coming out of Universal Japan, the Mario stuff, we don't need to open up that can of worms, but, like, it's so hard to judge when you're just going off, like, a cell phone video.
It's just everything with theme parks you have to experience for yourself before you judge it. And just, like, that's why it's just, like, people will never be satisfied when it comes to stuff. Because I feel like you put Disney on, like, a pedestal of, like, this is what I expect from it. And what the company is doing is very different than what the company was doing in 1971. Obviously, we both want animatronic heavy attractions, but just until they put up the money for a ride like that, we're going to have to, like, make do with what we have. And obviously technology is moving in a different way. Like, I'm sure that Shaman animatronic is more expensive than, like, all the animatronics in the Hall of Presidents. It's that one animatronic is probably more than that.
It certainly looks like it. So,
and just, like, now we're getting, like, the stuntatronics with, like, Spider-Man flipping around in Avengers Campus.
We're going good places. We've been good places, and the future's looking pretty good too. And that's really the message of this video. Let's think about that for a bit.
I long for this, but I know that it's not what's good for the company. And I don't say that as, like, a corporate shill. I say that as somebody who acknowledges that that my fandom for Disney is very different than Disney as a corporation, because those are two very different things. And I feel like that's what the fandom doesn't understand, is that, like, Disney is a company, and the hardcore Disney fans are a very small percentage of the people who visit Disney.
They don't care what we're saying online at all.
They do not care about our opinions. They don't care about this Twitter. They don't care about anything. They don't care about, like, us who are, like, in 1980.
Give me more Figment. Give me this character from
I do think people,
30, 40 years ago.
like Figment, because Disney heavily leans in Figment in merch. I feel like people wouldn't be mad if Figment had a bigger role in the parks.
Yeah.
Bring back Walk Around Figment. I want Walk Around Figment, and very long shot, bring back Walk Around Orange Bird. I just want to mention also, can we talk about how beautiful that Canada concept art was when they're talking about the Circle Vision? And just, like,
I have that too. It looks so much better than what we got.
I don't know if that's, like, a shot from, like, Circle Vision movie, because that's what they're talking about when they bring them, but it looks like there's people in the area, like, as park guests.
Yeah, and they show, like, the totem poles that are there, but it just looks so much. I don't know if it's because it's, like, night, or if it's just, like, a really optimistic rendering. Yeah, I also noticed some weird things with, like, the Japan Pavilion too. I saw that there was, like, a giant, like, show building behind the model that they showed off, and I don't know if that was just the model or if that was something that they were planning to build.
I'm trying to think back. There's a Yesterworld video where he talks about all the unopened. Very good video. Highly recommend Yesterworld.
There were rumors of like a Godzilla attraction or like a bullet train attraction. And I wanted to show you, these were like some screenshots that I took in the last song thing. I can't tell if this animatronic, I just sent you a picture of it. I think it shows up at 14 minutes and 57 seconds in the video.
It could be. Could be Godzilla.
It could be that, but I want to say it's more likely a dinosaur from Universe of Energy.
That would make more sense.
Just because, like, why would they build a whole animatronic for a ride that never happened?
So this must have been made, like, because when they're talking about the Germany Pavilion, they mentioned Beer Garden. And Germany Pavilion was originally going to have, like, a boat ride.
In place of Beer Garden.
So that must have already been canned by the time this came out.
Of course, this is a year before. I'm sure Epcot construction was just about like done at this point.
Yeah. And like they didn't talk about at all about like the pavilions that were gonna be there, like Israel, which never got built, or there was
Spain.
that shot of Spain, or there was that one shot of Equatorial Africa, but I only know that because I'm a nerd. And then they don't mention Norway, which got built. What other pavilions got added after?
Morocco.
I'm trying to think. Norway, Morocco. Any other ones?
I think those are it. I think those are the only ones that didn't open with the park. I could be wrong.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, no, I love this special. There's so much Epcot music in it. It's great. It really evokes that early time period, and just, you know, I want it back. I never had it, but I know it's not going to happen, and I know that's the right decision.
And we're just going to be happy with whatever comes. That's the attitude.
Exactly. But we're probably going to do episodes on like each of these pavilions at some point. So that's why we wanted to make this sort of like a broad overview, an introduction of just like where we are coming from as Epcot fans. So you know our biases when we start talking about like Sea Base Alpha and stuff like that.
Totally. Yeah, so with that, did you have any more final thoughts? I think that's a nice summary.
I have a lot of final thoughts, but those are for another day.
Okay, then we'll leave it at that. I think that was a nice way to tie off the episode. With that being said, thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for new episodes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
And make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Achy Breaky Park.
If you like the show, feel free to leave a 5-star review.
Until next time, don't forget, it was all started by two guys desperate to go back to their favorite theme park.